Hey, let me ask you something. Did you know that the secret to speaking English fluently might be something as simple as speaking every day? It sounds easy, right? But it's true. You can improve so much just by practicing a little bit each day. Imagine this. What if you stopped worrying about making mistakes? What if you could speak English with confidence every day, even if you're just starting out? You'd be amazed at how small steps can bring big results. In fact, this is how I improved my English. It wasn't magic. It wasn't about being perfect. It was about showing up every day and speaking no matter how scared I was. So, are you ready to take the first step? Let's talk about how you can do it too. Hey, I'm Emily. I remember when I first started learning English, it wasn't easy. In fact, I felt lost most of the time. I wanted to speak fluently, but it seemed like no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't get it right. I always struggled with expressing myself. I knew a lot of words, but when it came time to speak, my mind went blank. I would get nervous and make mistakes. That made me even more afraid to try again. For a long time, I was stuck. I felt frustrated. Every time I tried to talk in English, I would freeze. It was like the words were trapped in my head. But deep down, I knew communication was important. I wanted to be able to talk to people, to share my thoughts and ideas, not just in my own language, but in English too. I wanted to feel confident when I spoke, whether I was talking to a friend or giving a presentation at work. So I decided to take small steps. I didn't want to give up, but I knew I had to be patient with myself. I told myself that even if I made mistakes, I was still improving. Every day, I would practice just a little bit. And little by little, I started to feel more comfortable. I still made mistakes, but I didn't care as much anymore. The important thing was that I was trying. It wasn't easy, but it was worth it. And that's how my journey began. I used to think fluency was something you could just get one day, like a magic switch. But over time, I realized that wasn't true. Fluency is like planting a tree. You don't see it grow overnight, but every day, with small steps, it gets stronger. It was tough in the beginning. I remember the first time I had to speak in front of a group in English. My hands were shaking and my heart was racing. I felt like everyone was looking at me, waiting for me to make a mistake, and I did. I messed up my words. I could feel my face turn red, but I didn't give up. I was determined to get better. I started practicing every day. At first, it felt pointless. I didn't see any real progress, and I got frustrated. I wanted to be fluent now, not in months or years. But then I realized something. Even small progress counts. It's like growing a tree. Each day I was adding a little bit to my skills. I might not have been fluent yet, but I was getting there. I remember a moment that helped me keep going. I was talking to a friend in English and I made a mistake. Normally, I would have gotten embarrassed and stopped, but that day, I laughed it off. I realized that mistakes are part of the process. It was a huge step for me. I didn't fear mistakes anymore. Instead, I saw them as opportunities to learn. I started feeling more comfortable speaking. At first, the progress was slow, but bit by bit, I started to feel more confident. I practiced speaking every chance I got, whether it was with friends, in class, or even talking to myself in the mirror. I knew that every conversation, no matter how small, was helping me grow. I also learned something important: patience. You can't rush fluency. Just like a tree needs time to grow tall, my speaking skills needed time to develop. Sure, there were days when I felt discouraged. I felt like I wasn't improving fast enough. But I remembered the tree. It doesn't grow faster just because you want it to. It grows at its own pace, and so does your fluency. I kept reminding myself that if I kept practicing, the results would come. I couldn't stop now, and little by little I started seeing the changes. I was speaking more easily. I was making fewer mistakes. And most importantly, I started enjoying the process. That's when I realized something. Fluency isn't about being perfect. It's about growing, slowly but surely. At first, I was terrified of making mistakes. Every time I spoke in English, I was afraid that people would laugh at me or think I wasn't good enough. I wanted to speak perfectly, but the fear of making a mistake held me back. One day, I was talking to a friend, and I made a huge mistake. I was trying to say, "I'm excited to see you," but I accidentally said, "I'm excited to see you," like I was seeing a picture of them instead of meeting them in person. I could see the confusion on their face, and for a second, I froze. But then, something surprising happened. Instead of getting embarrassed or feeling bad, I laughed. My friend laughed too. They said, "It's okay, Emily. We all make mistakes." That was a turning point for me. I realized that mistakes weren't the end of the world. In fact, they were a big part of learning. I didn't have to be perfect. I just needed to keep trying. After that moment, I started changing how I saw mistakes. I stopped thinking of them as failures and started seeing them as opportunities. Every mistake was a chance to learn something new. Instead of getting upset, I would ask myself, what can I learn from this? For example, one time I was talking to a customer at my job and I got a word wrong. I wanted to say, "Could you repeat that?" But I accidentally said, "Could you redo that?" The customer looked a little confused. I quickly corrected myself, but instead of getting frustrated, I asked myself, why did I say redo instead of repeat? I figured out that redo was a word I knew from school, but I didn't use it in the right context. I took that lesson and remembered it the next time I spoke. The more I practiced, the more mistakes I made. But with each one, I was getting better. I didn't let them stop me anymore. The biggest change for me was when I realized that mistakes are normal. Everyone makes them, even native speakers. I didn't have to hide them or be afraid of them. Instead, I could embrace them and use them to grow. I started seeing mistakes as little lessons, and those lessons helped me improve every single day. Now, when I speak, I don't worry about making mistakes. I focus on getting better and enjoying the process. I've learned that mistakes are just part of the journey. Without them, I wouldn't have learned as much as I have. So if you're afraid of making mistakes, remember that they're not the problem. The real problem is not trying at all. Keep going, and you'll see that every mistake brings you one step closer to speaking fluently. For the longest time, I thought that fluency meant speaking fast. I wanted to sound like a native speaker, so I tried to speak as quickly as I could. But honestly, I wasn't getting anywhere. At first, speaking fast felt like the right thing to do. I thought if I spoke fast, I would sound more confident. But the truth was, the faster I spoke, the harder it was for people to understand me, and it made me feel even more insecure. I remember this one conversation with a friend. I was talking about something exciting that happened at work, and I was speaking so fast that she had no idea what I was saying. I could see the confusion on her face, and it made me feel embarrassed. That moment made me realize something important. Fluency doesn't mean speaking quickly. It's about clear communication. If people can't understand you, then it doesn't matter how fast you talk. So I decided to slow down. Instead of rushing through my sentences, I started speaking more clearly and with a little more pause. At first, it felt weird. It felt like I was talking too slowly. But soon, I noticed something amazing. I was able to pronounce words better, and people started understanding me more easily. One time, I was at a restaurant ordering food. In the past, I would have rushed through my order, trying to get it done quickly. But this time, I slowed down. I carefully said, "I would like a cheeseburger with no onions, please." The waiter smiled and said, "Got it, no onions." I was surprised at how easy it was. By speaking slower and more clearly, I avoided any misunderstandings. The order was perfect. It was then that I understood just how important it is to speak clearly. Speaking slower didn't make me sound less fluent, it made me sound more confident. It gave me more control over my words. And most importantly, it made me feel more comfortable. Slowing down also helped me practice pronunciation. Before, I would say words so fast that I didn't notice how some of them were coming out. But now, I could focus on each word, making sure I said it correctly. I realized that fluency is not about how fast you speak, but about how well you communicate. It's better to speak slowly and be understood than to rush and confuse people. Now, when I speak English, I take my time. I focus on speaking clearly and confidently. And the best part is, I feel more comfortable doing it. So, if you're like me and worried about speaking fast, try slowing down. Focus on being clear and precise. It's not about speed, it's about making sure people can understand you. The more you practice, the easier it will become. At some point in my journey, I realized that if I wanted to get better, I needed to practice every day. But practicing didn't have to be hard or complicated. It could be simple, fun, and even something I already enjoyed. One thing I started doing was talking with my friends in English. At first, it was awkward, but little by little, it became easier. I didn't care if I made mistakes. I just wanted to practice. And the more I spoke, the more confident I became. Another practice that really helped me was singing songs. Sounds silly, right? But it works.
Singing helped me with pronunciation and rhythm.
When I sang along with my favorite songs, I noticed how native speakers pronounced words. I tried to copy them. Slowly, I started sounding more natural. One of the best things I did was record myself speaking. At first, I hated hearing my voice on tape, but I pushed through. I recorded myself reading a short story or just talking about my day. Listening to the recordings helped me find things I needed to work on, like pronunciation or speed. Recording also helped me see the mistakes I was making. When I heard myself say something wrong, I was able to correct it. I would practice that part again and again until it felt right. Over time, I noticed a huge difference in how I spoke. Repeating sentences I heard from native speakers became another important practice. I would watch TV shows or listen to podcasts and repeat what the speakers said. I focused on their intonation, rhythm, and how they stressed certain words. It helped me sound more fluent and less like I was reading a script. Every time I repeated a sentence, I felt a little more confident. It's funny, but those small things, talking to friends, singing, recording myself, and repeating sentences, made a huge difference. They helped me feel more comfortable with English, and they helped me see my progress. The key here is consistency. Even on days when I didn't feel like practicing, I would try to do something. Even if it was just singing a song or repeating a phrase I heard in a show. The more I did it, the more I improved. Now, I can't imagine going a day without practicing. And it doesn't matter if it's 5 minutes or an hour. What matters is that I do it every day. So, if you're struggling with speaking, try some of these simple practices. They really work. As I look back on my journey, I realize one thing that really made all the difference: consistency. I've learned that success doesn't happen overnight. It's not about magically becoming fluent in a week or even a month. It's about sticking with it day after day and making small efforts every single time. When I first started, I felt like nothing was changing. It was frustrating, honestly. I'd practice for hours, and some days I didn't feel like I was getting any better. There were even times when I thought about giving up. But then I reminded myself this journey wasn't going to be easy. It was going to take time, and that was okay. Little by little, I began to notice small changes. My friends started to notice too. They'd tell me, "Hey, your English is sounding better." And that felt so good. But it wasn't just about what others noticed. I noticed it in myself. My confidence grew. I started to speak more freely. I wasn't afraid of making mistakes anymore. The more I practiced, the more comfortable I became. I can tell you this for sure. Every tiny step I took led to something bigger. Every day, I learned just a little bit more. And those little bits added up. They turned into big results over time. It wasn't always easy. There were days I felt lazy. There were days I felt like I wasn't making any progress at all. But I kept going. Even on those tough days, I knew that by sticking with it, I would get better. The truth is, the secret to success isn't talent or luck. It's consistency. It's about showing up every day and practicing, even when you don't feel like it. Some days might feel like you're stuck, but if you keep practicing, you'll look back one day and see how far you've come. So if you're feeling frustrated or tired, remember this. It's okay to feel that way, but don't stop. Keep practicing. Keep learning, and most importantly, be patient with yourself. The results will come. If you commit to speaking every day, even for just a few minutes, I promise you'll see changes. You don't have to speak perfectly right away. You just need to keep trying. As long as you keep moving forward, you'll keep improving. And that's the secret to success. So here's my final word to you. Never give up, even on the tough days. Your hard work will pay off, and before you know it, you'll be speaking English with confidence. Just remember, it's all about consistency. Keep going, and you'll get there.